What's up, Fed Nation? Rich Malachy back for another Fed chat. You've been waiting, and here we are. This is episode 11, and we have our special guest today, Chuck Leclerc. Leclerc. So, Chuck, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about yourself, and take it away, sir.
All right, thank you. First, I want to thank you for taking this time to do this. It's been a unique situation for all of us, and I think we're all trying to find different ways to get out there and work during these times. So, like Rich said, my name is Chuck Leclerc. I am an account manager for Hoshizaki Ice Machines and Refrigeration in New England. I personally cover Maine, New Hampshire, and northern Massachusetts. And while working from home, I've been trying to put a focus on growing via social media. And even though I'm very regionalized up here, I think growing outwards is going to be a part of how we move forward. So I stumbled across this Fed Nation. From what I know so far, it almost exactly lines up with an image that I have in my head, and I'm just super psyched to be here. So I really appreciate it, Rich.
That's awesome, Chuck. Thank you. We're happy to have you. I hope you get to start to really connect with some people here, because that's a big piece of this puzzle, networking.
Yes.
Yeah. But COVID-19, we all got punched in the face, right? Everyone had their 2-year plans and their yearly plans and their 5-year plans, and we all got punched in the face. Like Mike Tyson, I think, said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Yeah, right.
We all just got punched in the face. So let's talk a little bit about what you got going on up there in Maine. What was pre-COVID looking like? What it was looking like during when it started? What is post-COVID? We'll get to all of it. So what are you doing up there during this time?
So pre-COVID, like most manufacturer reps, a typical day would be either on the road visiting different customers. A large portion of my customer base is focused on the food equipment dealers in the area. Another large portion is working with guys like you. Actually, my favorite type of customer, if I had to kind of put it in a bucket, my favorite type of customer to work with is and are the HVAC companies. So especially up this way, it's a smaller area, and it's and the smaller companies, the more personal I can get with a company, the better it seems to work. So I would be out there calling on customers, receiving phone calls. I do 95% of my job via the cell phone, like everybody else out there. And so I do the 2 or 3 days a week on the road, traveling across northern New England, and the other 2 days I'm lucky to have a home office and get a lot done from home. So at this point, I've been with Hoshizaki for 15 years now. So I started when I was 26 years old, and the mantra back then was, on the road every day, 5 days a week, doing cold calls, just doing what you have to do to grow the business. And it's amazing. It's amazing how the industry and the job has evolved over time, where I never thought I'd be doing deals via text message. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'll place that $25,000 order, here's my confirmation over text. And so it's been an evolving industry even before this, but it's just going to evolve even more. So typical on the road, visiting customers, answering calls, doing quotes, site visits, and meeting with guys like you.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say I think for me, in my head, when this all started, was around March 8th, because that's when I was at the New York Restaurant Show. That's when it really started to develop.
We were actually part of that show.
Well, you know what? Our local, we just talked about our local Hoshizaki distributor here, which is Automatic Ice, Jordan Singer and Hamilton over there. They were there. They were representing Hoshizaki, and I can't remember the guy's name. Is it Bob?
Well, we in New York, we're separate from Singer. We have Hoshizaki Northeastern out of Plainview, New York. So I don't know if Singer was probably just representing them in general, and then Hoshizaki Northeastern also had a booth over there as well. That was probably separate. Once again, I'm super regionalized, so I wasn't part of that. The only food show that I really went to on a regular basis was the one in Boston, and so, but I just know Hoshizaki Northeastern was represented there by my VP and the people and the account managers that cover that area.
Yeah, and not to get off topic, but has anyone ever told you, because you're close to Boston kind of guy, you ever see the town kind of is Casey Affleck? You kind of look like Casey Affleck.
I look like Casey Affleck?
A little bit.
No, never got that. You're the first one, but I'll take it. I will take it.
A little bit. I don't know. You got a little bit of the movie, The Town thing going on. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if he was in that one. That was probably Ben, but anyway. So we're talking like the beginning of March, when things really started to develop and everything. So you're working kind of from home on the road. You're kind of back and forth anyway. But when this first started, for me, I'm the kind of guy that's like, this will be fine. Well, let's keep working. Don't worry about this. Just let it run its course. We're going to keep working. We're fine. Nothing's going to happen. Are you that kind of guy? Were you just like,
I was the complete opposite, as a matter of fact. Don't judge me, but especially lately, one of my biggest faults right now is the fact that I'm hyper focused on just current events and the news. And when word of this started spreading, even back in February, this was on my radar. And I never thought it was really going to get to the point it's at today. But I remember in February warning friends. For instance, I had a friend that they had a plan to go out to San Francisco and then Hawaii from there. And it was about a month down the road. And I told them right then and there, I said, first of all, I would really consider going, because this whole thing I really feel has the potential of being serious. And two, excuse me, I made a prediction that it was going to ultimately get canceled, and that is ultimately what happened. So now and not to pat myself on the back or anything, but I kind of saw what was coming down the road. I don't think anyone could have predicted how serious it ultimately became, but it was on my radar pretty quickly, and I was and still am a little nervous about it.
Yeah. I mean, it got very real for us, about 4 weeks ago, especially New York, New Jersey. Our numbers are still going up. I mean, there's, I know we're talking about flattening the curve here, and I think there's a little bit of that on the horizon. But for us, the numbers are still very high. And, we're closed. We're pretty much a closed state to an extent that I can't get into a service. I can't get into a lot of facilities outside of supermarkets or C-stores. If we go into a store, we got to wear a mask. It's signs everywhere. You're not allowed in the store without a mask. You will be asked to leave. So it's still pretty scary over here. And actually, sadly enough, two guys that I grew up with and went to grammar school with have passed away in the past 2 weeks.
What? Like, how old were they?
My age. So one guy was 39. The other guy was, our age, 38, 39 and 40.
And they passed away due to COVID?
Yeah.
Like underlying conditions, or
they were one of the guys, I'm not sure, I didn't know them very well.
Without getting too personal, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know them too well. I know the one guy I had seen just back in November. We ran into each other locally, had a shot together and everything. And he was a little heavy, a little overweight. He might have had some underlying things, but still,
that's what makes it scary. I mean, you see the overall numbers, and I do believe that the older you are, the more underlying conditions you have, the more risk you're at this. But there's just so much unknown, and you just don't know, and it's that not knowing is what kind of makes me nervous about it. I'm 41 years old. I've always been an overweight type of guy. I'm actually a lot lighter today than I was, a year, 18 months ago, but,
Yes.
tried to make improvements on that. But I've been an asthmatic my entire life. I'm a former smoker. So it's things like that just get into my head and kind of at times take over a little bit. But then there's another part of me, like today, I was lucky enough to convince my barber to give me a haircut, and
Yeah.
he went in for me, and he was super skittish about it, just because like up here in Maine, even though it's not nearly as bad as it is down your way, it's still here. So
Sure.
but it was nice to get out. We all need to find what our new normal is going to be, and it's not going to be anywhere near what it was before, but anything that goes beyond staying at home 98% of the time, I think is just going to help us all out. And with the fact that spring's here, summer's on the way, I don't see any non-benefits of not being outside. I just think people are going to try to do outside activities as much as they can, and it's just going to do us all very good. So
yeah. I mean, that's one of the big things. Thankfully we have summer coming and not winter coming, right? That's
thank God.
a good thing, right? This didn't happen like dead winter. We have nothing to look forward to. We have actually summer coming. So
yeah.
But unfortunately, we have parks are closed here, governor mandated. Businesses are closed. But I think as we get closer to mid-May and June, and the flowers are blooming, I think we're going to start to see a change.
Yeah, and as we learn more, information is key in this whole thing, and we're in an information finding mode, and I'm hoping that information and the science will drive the decisions of all of our local and federal politicians to make the right decisions for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned fear of the unknown, right? I love that, because Fed Nation, we're here with Fed Nation. It's digital disruption. We're talking about that. I come into contact with a lot of these people over the past, 24 months, and a lot of the talk is they want to start, but they're afraid to put this thing on and record themselves because of fears of the unknown, and I think now is the perfect time. You had said you wanted to start getting really more into this, right? Getting comfortable in front of the camera. When I first started, I hated it. I didn't want to look at myself. I didn't want to hear myself. I still don't, but it gets easier. And the fear of the unknown. What are people going to say about me? What are my friends are going to say? What are my coworkers? What's the industry going to think? They're going to start gathering all these opinions about me, and they're going to hate me. And you know what? None of that matters, because if you have a message and you're genuine and authentic, you got to do it. Forget the fear of the unknown.
And to be honest, so this whole opportunity. So what I'm doing today, excuse me. What I'm doing today, I've always, not always, but 2, 3, 4 years ago, I found Twitch.tv. And for those of you who don't know, Twitch.tv, there are content creators out there that basically, I mean, it's grown since then, but it kind of started as a video gaming platform, and people would log in to watch creators play video games. And the concept just blew my mind. I saw the money aside, but the money that I saw people throwing at these content creators for playing video games, it blew my mind, and it piqued my curiosity. So I started doing a little bit of digging into what it takes to start creating content in general, not necessarily video gaming centric, but just in general. And I really gravitated towards it. And so over a year or so, I got a computer I built a computer that ran good enough to be able to do this. I ended up slowly upgrading equipment. I started with a headset with a microphone, and just kind of upgraded from there. And I started playing around with it a little bit, and I don't know what it is. I just enjoyed doing it. So I played with it for a little bit. I always wanted to try to figure out if there was content that I could produce that people would actually want to watch. And I could never put my finger on exactly what that would be. So we ended up doing some house renovations over here, and I ended up packing up a lot of my equipment that I had purchased over the years. And then when we found out that we were going to be working from home for God knows how long. I mean, at the time, I was hoping it was only going to be a couple weeks, but at this point, we might not even be back for a couple more months. So I figured I'd blow the dust off the equipment and see if there was something I could do and incorporate it into what I do for a job. So I consulted my boss over it. I proposed to him. I said, I would like to start doing product review, Hoshizaki-centric product reviews. Maybe look into current events on what's happening in the food service industry and kind of comment on them, and just see how it goes. And he was all for it. He was. So I ended up taking an old YouTube channel that I've had for a while and tried to slowly convert it into a channel that focuses on Hoshizaki. So at this point, I have probably now 5 or 6 product reviews, Hoshizaki product reviews that I put on there. I've been sharing them on LinkedIn. I've been sharing them on my personal Facebook page. I need to get into Instagram. I'm like in that generation that knows enough about computers and grew up with them, but still old enough to not be able to fully take advantage of social media. So I'm still working on that end of things, but it gave me something to talk about. B, I have backing from my boss. The word has traveled to the corporate folks down in Georgia, and everyone I've talked to, they've been really positive on what I'm doing up here. And I love doing it. And I hope, and my boss has even said that once we start going back to normal, he doesn't want this to end. I really think that there was a hole in the food service industry anyway in terms of video content, and I'm getting convinced more and more that the food service industry is better at social media than I first thought it was. But I still think that the video content, there's an opportunity there, which you saw this well before I did, obviously, with starting Fed Nation and all that. And I hope, and I want to be a part of it, to be honest. It's something that I enjoy doing, even if it doesn't, pay the bills per se. Like I said, it's a hobby that I enjoy doing, and I hope to be able to grow with the nation and maybe even grow beyond Hoshizaki-centric stuff.
Yeah, I mean, now there's such an opportunity now to realize the power of what this can actually do. I mean, look at all the Zoom chats and the Zoom virtual happy hours and the new norms that are being created as we sit here, me and you, as we speak.
And they're not going anywhere. They may subside a little bit, but this whole marriage of the food service industry and video content and technology and all that, I really think this is here to stay, and it's going to become more and more important as we all move forward.
Absolutely. It's not going anywhere. And, talking about video content in the industry, a lot of it, especially when I really started almost 3 years ago, going full time, pumping out videos daily, just about, the video that was there was very lackluster. It was very boring, mundane. You got the number one thing you got to do is you got to engage somebody, and you got to get them in the first few seconds, or they're going to keep moving. And
I've noticed that in my YouTube analytics that you put out a 6 to 10 minute video, yet the average view duration is 2 minutes. It's like, oh, man, I wish it would stick around a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's one of those things, and that's why there's no right. For the people watching here in Fed Nation, there's no right or wrong. Whether you put out a minute video, a 2-minute video, an 8-minute video, you have to continually test the waters and see what works best for you. What works for you might not work for me, so you got to keep testing. There's a lot of trial and error in this stuff.
I'm in that testing stage, definitely. So
yeah, I think it's a forever thing, honestly, because the world changes and evolves. So what works, because we're seeing stuff like, oh my God, this really was doing really well, especially on my LinkedIn. I was getting 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 views, 40 comments. If you go look at my LinkedIn today, it's just different. I'm getting 600 to 800 views now. I'm getting half the comments. Things are happening. The algorithm.
Are you getting them from somewhere else though?
What do you mean?
Like the views, so you're saying your LinkedIn views might be going down, but are your views going up somewhere else?
No. I mean, honestly, a lot of my numbers are down. I'm going to be honest. YouTube numbers are down a little bit, but again, I haven't been focused on YouTube since this started. I've been focused on LinkedIn and Facebook for the most part, and still posting on Instagram.
This Facebook thing is great. I think what you do on Facebook is, like I said, I had a vision in my head, and I'm 3 years behind the curve, because if you've been doing this 3 years, it
takes time.
You do it well.
I appreciate it. I do. It's just, learn. It's one of those things. There's plenty of books you could read, but until you start going for your own journey, you just don't realize it, and you figure it out. And there's tips and tricks of the trade as you go along, and there's a science to this thing. Even talking about getting the numbers up and getting attention, talking about the first few seconds, the first couple of minutes, the thumbnail on those YouTube videos for anyone watching, creating a thumbnail that's eye-catching and eye-grabbing to make someone even want to click that is important.
Yep. I found a couple. I don't know if you use them or not, but so today what I consume mostly is either podcast type things, or it's usually a single person or a couple people just talking about things that I'm interested in. And I come across, I saw, how you have like the Google Chrome extensions on top of the web.
Okay, Fed Nation. So we had a little blip. Internet problems, Zoom problems, part 2. We're back with Chuck Leclerc. Boom. All right, so we were kind of talking about a whole lot of stuff, but we'll continue our journey on wherever we were headed. I was last talking about YouTube thumbnails, I think, and the importance of there's a science to this thing with digital. But we could kind of segue into a new topic here, because me and you were talking before we got on about Hoshizaki goes to market kind of uniquely. So maybe we want to talk a little bit about that right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to put a little bit of a focus on it, because when it comes to food service equipment and the way manufacturers decide to go to market, what I see typically, and maybe you can share your experience too, but what I see typically is the major manufacturers, they partner up with these rep firms that typically these rep firms are repping anywhere from 10, 20, maybe even 30 different manufacturers. You have maybe 1 or 2 salespeople that are covering vast territories. But Hoshizaki, for whatever reason, does it a little bit different, especially when it comes to their Hoshizaki-centric distribution centers. So in the United States, Hoshizaki has Hoshizaki distribution centers in New York and New England, which together they're the Northeast. There's another one, I have my list here. There's another one in Ohio, there's another one in Florida, there's one in Texas, and there's one in California. So those 5 or 6 distribution centers, each of them are employing multiple, what they call account managers, basically fancy word for sales rep. And it allows us, so for instance, we have us in New England, and other rep firms that I see, you might have one sales guy that is doing northern New England, say Boston and north, and then you have another guy or gal that's doing south of Boston into Rhode Island and to the New York border. In New England, we have 4 people, and 4 people only selling Hoshizaki, and we're also very regionalized. So for instance, I live in southern Maine. I cover all of Maine, New Hampshire, and I go into northern Massachusetts. Now, just for geography purposes, even though I'm in Maine, I'm closer to Boston. It takes me about an hour and a half to drive to Boston than I am to Bangor, Maine, which takes me close to 2.5 hours. So even though I'm in Maine, I'm in the southern part of the state, and it really puts me in the middle of my territory. And then when it comes to the other sales guys, we have a Boston guy, we have a Connecticut and Vermont guy, and we have a Rhode Island and the Cape and all that good stuff. So we really have the feet on the street. It allows us to really create and develop relationships, personal relationships with our customers. And I just think it's something that Hoshizaki really does right in terms of sales. And I just, 15 years ago when I started, I never thought that selling ice machines basically and refrigeration, and that a company out of New England would be able to support 4 sales guys only selling one brand and not having to branch into all these other brands like everybody else does.
Yeah. I mean, here in New Jersey, I mentioned we have automatic ice, and they're I believe they're the main distribution over here in our area.
Yeah, there'd probably be like I said, if you're not if the territory is not covered by a Hoshizaki distribution center, there are even more independent distributors out there that do a very good job and do it their own way. So
yeah, and we work close with them for a service company. We mentioned about selling equipment, so we do sell some equipment. Most of the Hoshizaki, all the Hoshizaki I buy will be through Jordan at Automatic Ice.
Yep,
and we sell a few a year. We're not breaking the bank. We're not selling a ton, but when the opportunity arises, we are there for that. And speaking of you're in Maine. Are you familiar with the service company up there, Pine Tree?
Oh, very. I actually just before getting on here, I had to email the local sales guy up there. He was looking for availability on a little undercounter that we do. So yeah, I'm very tied into Pine Tree, and they've helped me out a lot, especially. I tell you, this past summer, summer 19, it was one of the craziest summers service-wise that I have ever been a part of. And if it wasn't for Pine Tree, they were a savior. They really were. And
They're a great company.
I have a special respect for service companies, because without guys like you, without people like Pine Tree, it makes my job a lot harder. And having those relationships and being able to have these go-to companies to help out, it just helps. It helps tremendously. I can't even put words to it.
Yeah, I mean, these are the guys in the trenches, the technicians, the guys that are willing to crawl up into ceilings and behind all the grease and grime and dirt, dirty jobs, right? With Mike Rowe.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Really just getting down and dirty, even in times like this. I'm watching all these other companies on LinkedIn and across the country showing up, and with their masks and their gloves and even their hazmat suits and all these big face shields, and they're in there getting it done because they know that people depend on them. And that's the nature of the beast right here. I mean, we can sell all the equipment we want, but at the end of the day, it's about people. That's why I love this industry so much. It's the people.
I agree, and I agree. I had a thought, but I forgot it.
That's all right. It happens to me all day long.
Oh, that's why I said even out of all the sectors that or all the different parts of the business that I dealing with HVAC companies is my absolute favorite. And a lot of these HVAC techs, especially, I love working for Hoshizaki because it's an easy product to sell. If it stands on its own, it has the features and benefits to pretty much sell itself. but some of my best salespeople out there are the techs in the field, because it's you guys that have your hands on this thing. You know how it's built, and I think your opinion goes a lot further than a guy trying to make money selling it. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of influence, here in the field and in the trenches, and yeah, for sure. I mean, today's day and age, I'm listening to local radio stations and NJ 1015, and they're talking about dirty jobs and essential workers and all the people that always have these thankless jobs until now. The truck drivers delivering, technicians, city workers that are going around. This one guy called in. He was talking that he's cleaning up the streets. He's in sewers, and even with the people in the dog parks that they're putting the dogs, dropping the bags of crap into these little things. I mean, these guys are taking all this crap. They're staying active. They're still working. They're doing this stuff, and it kind of goes to the wayside. You don't think about it. It's like, oh, yeah, these things don't just happen. People are doing these things.
And I truly believe that if there's any way to reward these type of people, I truly, my wife is in the medical field. Now, she's not necessarily on the front lines of things, but she works for a cardiologist office, and she has crossed paths with positive patients, and they obviously try to do what they can in wearing the proper PPE and all that. But it's people like that deserve the credit even before or after this. But being on the front lines, I hope there's a way to reward them monetarily. They deserve it. Some of these, especially either drivers or grocery store or warehouse workers or whatnot, they're not some of the highest paid people, and I just think it would be a wonderful thank you and just to reward them that way.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, we're getting to continue our lives in quarantine because these other people are putting their lives on the line, going out there and working in the supermarket. Like I said, working on these front lines. And we've been talking on the previous chats about tragedy and all these things and how this brings us closer together. So this leads me into your 9/11 story. Where were you at 9/11? What were you doing?
Yeah, it's I don't remember the details per se, but what I do remember is I was going, it was 2001, so I was in my college career, and I went to school locally. At that time, I was commuting to school, and they had classrooms right locally. And that morning, I had some sort of computer class. I don't know if it was like a Microsoft Excel class, or it had something where I had a computer in front of me. And before I left for that class, it must have been like a 9:30 class, I was catching like the beginning of the coverage on the news, and it caught my attention, and I ended up turning it off. I went to class, and the first thing I pulled up while I was in the class was probably Yahoo News or whatever was big in 2001 on the internet, just trying to follow. And while I was in class is when the second tower ended up getting struck. And I just vividly remember the teacher at the time, and she wasn't a very old teacher, but she was, or professor, whatever you want to call it. She had absolutely no interest in wanting to know what was going on. And you don't know when you're in the middle of it, but
No.
She was more focused on wanting to get out whatever the lesson was for that day, as we were kind of chatting back and forth, trying to keep abreast on what was going on. And I remember getting out of the class, coming home, watching the coverage. And just like today, I guess some things don't change. I watch too much current events and news as it is right now. I did then. And one of the things I thought it was a good tribute to 9/11 was when one of the cable news stations used to replay the coverage. It must be an NBC affiliate, because it was always the Today Show stuff. when they used to replay in real time on how it happened that year. And up until recently, I don't think they do that anymore, but there was many years afterwards that I made a point to watch that because it's an important part in our history, and everybody should at least know what happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's already in the history books in schools, and
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be another one of those things. I think that's in the history books, the pandemic of 2020, and we're going to look
It'll
back.
be interesting to see how the story is told too. So, especially living in it with the knowledge we have now and being more aware, it'll be interesting. Because even with 9/11, I don't. I guess I followed it, but I guess I don't know how it's told today to be able to make a comparison.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see, and it'll be also be interesting to see. This is gonna be a domino effect. Like this, dealing with the virus and everything is really the first couple dominoes to fall. There's gonna be financial things. The whole oil industry is up in the air right now, and people aren't too happy with China right now. So there's gonna be it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 2 to 5 years.
yeah, yeah. I think we're going to see. A lot of people keep saying the new norm. What
Mm.
the new normal is going to look like. I think there's going to be a lot of these bigger corporations. I mean, I don't know. Do we see a lot of more production coming back to America?
In a perfect world, or in my perfect world, I hope so. I hope this is a wake up call. I mean, I'm all for partnering with different countries and trying to streamline everything, but I also am a big proponent of taking care of our own. And if that means bringing manufacturing, or some or a lot of manufacturing back, I think there's a lot of positive to come with that. And I even think it might become more micro than that as well, where I hope it lends the opportunity for more small businesses, more like super focused small businesses to come about to help supply or provide their service to, even on like a county level or community level or state level. So I hope I hope that that's something that we learn out of this.
Yeah. Um, I think it's hard. I'm talking to people now just for masks and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, I don't want to get the mask because it's made in China. I'm like, you're going to have a hard time finding anything that's not made in China right now. So,
Yeah, but then it lends the opportunity. Like my stepmother, for example, she's always been good with sewing and crocheting and knitting and all that stuff. And she did her first round of masks for all of us, because I believe, especially moving forward over the next 6, 12, maybe even 18 months, that a mask is going to become like a pair of socks, where you put on a mask for the day, you either throw it away or you end up throwing it in the wash to pick out another one for the next day. And
yeah,
and I think this lends an opportunity for that. We're in crisis mode here, but the
yeah,
positive side of it is there's opportunities that are being presented to people that are probably smarter than I am, but there's going to be opportunities that come out of this. And the people who can figure that out, maybe it's Fed Nation, maybe it's video content, maybe it's making masks on a local level, maybe it's being chicken farmer, who knows what it is. But
yeah.
there's gonna be opportunities for people to take advantage of, and I know if anybody's gonna take advantage of it, it'll be the people of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that I talk about it a lot too. Opportunity right now, not being an opportunist, two different things. I'm not looking
I'm trying to make that distinction too,
for,
right?
but there's opportunity that lies here. We talk like for service and manufacturers alike and reps and dealers. Everybody's got to kind of think for their own business and their own strategies. But, there's just going to be so many new services and new things that we can begin to implement. I just had a conversation yesterday with someone looking to start a new division of Team Malachy here. We're going to be doing some deep cleaning. Um, after-hour type stuff, antibacterial. I'm working with someone on some certain types of cleaning things, and it's way early right now, but there's just so many new opportunities. I'm going to be redesigning the PMs that we do. I think we could stop going, instead of doing quarterlies, maybe we're going to start doing monthlies and making sure that these things are really top-notch clean. All this UV lighting, especially for the ice machines, UV lighting, filtration is going to become bigger. I think there's just a lot of things that we're going to start paying a lot more attention to, and that's not going to change.
No, it isn't. And I agree 100%. You're going to see, especially in the restaurant side of things, one person that I've been kind of following a little more closely than others is John Tapper. He's the bar rescue guy. Yeah. So he makes news appearances here and there. He's been in the industry forever, and he's a smart guy. And even from the beginning, a month ago, he was saying that capacity in restaurants, if you're a 100-seat restaurant, well, you got to prepare to be a 50-seat, maybe a 40-seat restaurant, because it's going to be a focus. And potential customers aren't going to walk into an establishment if there's a feeling that they're not going to be safe. And so this whole, it'll almost be like proudly to display, Team Malachy, sanitized us, a week ago or whatever. Just, displaying that and trying to get the point across that, okay, yes, we still have the good food, we still have the good service. Well, we're also taking extra measures to keep extra clean, to keep everyone safe, because people aren't going to be. They're not going to be knocking down the doors of restaurants even when we're allowed to leave here. It's going to be a slow transition, and trust. It's going to basically come down to trust.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I know people are itching to get out and they want to run. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of places that we'll see a surge, and there's going to be different scenarios, different places across the country. But I definitely think the seating, like you said, it's going to shrink. I don't think we're going to be elbow to elbow in bars and stadiums right away. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
Will we get back there? Absolutely. I could definitely see myself at MetLife Stadium at a Giants game like this at some point. But It's not. Is it going to be this season? Probably not.
No.
But this is it. And you hear like a lot of successful people talking about, you can't cry about it. You got to adapt, and you got to make yourself, put yourself in the best position to win now, because this is what it is. What are you going to sit here and complain and cry? Nobody's going to listen. So, for everyone out there in Fed Nation watching, it's time we've got to put on our big boys pants, our big girl pants, and we just got to adapt to the new world. I don't think it's going to be as bad as anyone thinks. Right now, we're getting through some of the worst of it, and unfortunately, people are losing their lives, which is the worst part about this whole thing. But I think there's brighter light at the end of the tunnel. So at this point in the game, I usually say, as we come to a close, if you have any last encouraging words for Fed Nation.
I think you summed it up pretty good. It's just adapting and keeping a positive attitude, I think, is very important. And my efforts to adapting was to put a focus on video content, to try to be a part of the evolution of what the food service industry might be trending towards. And whatever I would assume, I guess most people in here are in the food service industry. So I would say do what you can to play your part in evolutionizing this industry, because it seems like once you get into this industry, you're probably in it for the long haul. So might as well make the best of it.
Yeah, it's true. Once the industry gets a hold of you, you never leave.
That's what I see. You see a lot of old timers out there, and I have a feeling I'm going to be one of those old timers. So hopefully.
20 years from now, we'll do this. We'll do another Fed chat, and we'll talk about this Fed chat, and we'll talk about all the things that have happened since.
We'll talk about the virtual world that we're doing sales and servicing. So
we might be doing this. It might be our holograms.
Right, exactly. Head in a jar, just floating there.
Exactly. So listen, I appreciate you taking the time. And the last thing I'll say, the YouTube channel. What's the name of the YouTube channel?
So I've been kind of playing with it. So right now, if you search Ice Guy Chuck and Hoshizaki, it should pop up for you. I am, with your permission, I'm trying to post any, not necessarily product reviews, but anything that has like general information, I'd like to post on Fed Nation.
Yeah.
And I'm working on my Twitter, which is the same at Ice Guy Chuck. And I need to learn Instagram because I know that's a huge opportunity that's out there that I'm not taking advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. Get on all the platforms you can right now. TikTok is something I've not really dove into, but
that's another one.
The organic reach right now, you could, if you do something that really catches on, you can go from 500 followers to 5 million overnight. I mean,
it's crazy.
And you don't know what that might be. You just got to keep trying and testing it out. But yeah, so I'll actually put the link to your YouTube channel in the description here.
I really appreciate it. Thank you,
Rich.
Rich.
Get that going. And lastly, before I jump off, just to let you know, like for this group, we really absolutely post stuff that's going to bring value to people and educate people and bring insight. That's what this is about. So definitely post those things, and we'll be looking for it. Chuck, thank you again.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. So this is another Fed Chat. We're taking it down, episode 11. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a special two-parter. I will see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.